Making a life versus making a living. When deciding which one is important, how do you really decide what really satisfies and what is the purpose? There are always a lot of questions to not only the corporate leaders, but every human being. This is your host, Swami Sri Parambadur, and you're listening to Leadership in Crisis. And we have invited a very special guest and seasoned management guru and my mentor, Sir Gurucharan Dasji. Gurucharan Dasji is an author, management guru, public intellectual, known for a much acclaimed trilogy on the classical Indian ideal of life's goals. India Unbound was the first on Artha or material well being. It offers a personal account of Indian recent economic rise and is available in 19 languages and filmed by the BBC. The second, the difficulty of being good on Dharma, moral well being, illuminates our day to day moral dilemmas through a meditation on the epic Mahabharata. Kama, the riddle of desire, on the third goal, teaches how to cherish desire in order to live a rich, flourishing life. Mr. Das graduated in philosophy with honors from Harvard University and later attended Harvard Business School, where he was featured in three case studies. He was a CEO of Procter& Gamble India and managing director, Procter& Gamble Worldwide. At 50, he took early retirement to become a full-time writer. He writes a regular column for the Times of India and 5 Indian language papers and contributes to Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, and Foreign Affairs. He's a speaker to some of the world's largest corporations. It is so honored to have him. Gurucharan Dasji, welcome to Leadership in Crisis.
Thank you, Swami. You called me a management guru, but let me quickly disabuse you about such a person. For me, a guru is one who's good at understanding, GU, but relatively useless, RU. The word guru is also in my name, of course, so this presents a problem. But it wasn't always so. Until the age of 3, my name was Ashok Kumar.
Oh.
But my grandmother suspected that my mother had given me that name because she thought that my mother was secretly in love with a Bollywood actor named Ashok Kumar. So she took me to her guru, placed me at his feet, and told the guru to give this boy a name. And the guru, seeing me at his feet, said, well, let's call him Gurucharan Das. So overnight, at the age of 3, I was transformed from Ashok Kumar, Prince of Happiness, to Gurucharan Das, the humble servant of the feet of the Guru.
Wow.
But I think the Guru also was giving me a message. And the message that he was giving me was a message in humility. Now, what he was trying to say to me, I think, is that, young man, you will grow up. So you should when you grow up, take your work seriously, but not yourself seriously. And so, in the last 25 years, since I left the corporate world at 50 to become a writer. And I've met many leaders because I write a column in the newspapers. And I also met many business leaders when I was in business. Yeah. And I found they had 3 qualities.
Okay.
One was determination, not intelligence, determination, willpower.
Willpower.
Strong, almost stubborn. Second quality, again, not intelligence, but humility. Now,
Mm.
humility doesn't mean you're not ambitious. These leaders were fiercely ambitious,
Mhm.
but their ambition was for their work, for
Right.
their project, for their company. And this is what the Guru was also telling me when he said, take your work seriously, but not
Not
yourself
you.
seriously.
Wow.
The third quality, of course, is integrity. And integrity is something you don't talk about, you see it in action. In fact, if somebody talks about it, you begin to worry about him.
Very true. Whether he's only going to be talking or executing.
So I wanted to say that the mistake all companies make
Mhm.
is they hire people for skills, knowledge, instead of attitude. So you should hire people for attitude and train them in skills,
Yes.
because you cannot change attitude, but you can change skills, give people skills.
Correct.
And so the fact is, the most important decision we make in a company is when we bring a new person into the company. And companies don't take that as seriously as they should.
Mhm.
In fact, there's only one company that takes it really seriously, and that's Goldman Sachs. They'll hire the top of the class from Harvard Business School, but they'll make that person go through 25 interviews with partners. And
Mhm.
that poor fellow, he's so tired that he's already down before he joins the company. Anyway, now I'm going to talk to you about making a life
Yes.
versus making a living. And I must, we are all caught up in the rat race.
Yeah.
First, when we are students, we are grubbing for grades and marks, trying to go up in life. Then, when we start working, we start climbing ladders.
True.
And before we realize it, we get to a point in our 40s when we ask ourselves, is this what life was all about?
True.
So I got this idea about I had two influences on my life.
Okay.
My mother,
Mhm.
she was a middle class woman who suffered from middle class insecurities. And so she wanted her son to make a living.
Living.
That was her mantra, go and make a living. My father was a much more relaxed person. He was a spiritual man. He
Oh,
meditated 2 hours a day.
great.
And he told me, yes, listen to your mother, but more important, make a life. And so I had this. So my earliest memory is when I was 4 years old.
Wow.
I had come, I'd finished kindergarten, and I came home with a report card in my hand. And my mother saw me, and she took the report card and she asked me, did you stand first? And my father was sitting far away. And he told my mother, that is the wrong question to ask. That you should not ask him whether he stood first, but is he enjoying school?
Join.
What is he like in school? What subject is he like? Does he like to play? And what does he like to play? And what does he enjoy? And so very early, there was this split personality created in me. And like any person from a middle class family, my father was an engineer, you know. And so at that time, he worked for the government. There was not much money. And so all the money, my mother had to be very careful in budgeting. And so, the money went to pay fees in school, because we were 4 children, and also it went to buying milk and things they thought were important. Anyway, so I grew up and under these two influences, and I was very lucky. I got a scholarship to Harvard,
Wow.
and it was very rare in those days, but there were
Absolutely.
circumstances and I got a scholarship. And my mother said, make sure you take useful subjects. You're going to come home and get a job.
No.
So why don't you become an engineer like your father and go take subjects that are easy? You can max the marks in those subjects. But when I arrived at Harvard, they said, when I said I'm going to be an engineer, they said, you've come to the wrong school. There's another school down the river called MIT.
MIT.
You'll get a better engineering education there. But I did not listen to my mother's advice. I got caught in the romance of the liberal education. And so I was studying economics, and then I was studying history, and I was studying politics and economics and art and architecture, even Sanskrit. I studied Sanskrit for 2 years with Daniel Ingalls, the great Sanskrit scholar
Sanskrit in Harvard. Wow.
at Harvard that had a very good department of Sanskrit.
Well, that's very interesting to know.
So my point is that finally I graduated. In fact, I was taking so many subjects that even Harvard got worried. And they said, now you choose one. You're in your final year and you choose one subject. So I decided to specialize and I got my degree in philosophy.
Okay.
And then I was invited, I got another scholarship to go to Oxford to do philosophy. So I went home, and my mother wasn't quite sure what I had been studying. I didn't tell her I just studied Sanskrit. She would have got very worried. Where's this
Going all the way to America to learn Sanskrit, what's going on?
Right. And so, but in the middle of the summer, before I went to Oxford, I suddenly asked myself, do I want to spend the rest of my life at that stratosphere of abstract thought? No. I said I wanted to have a life of action. And so I wrote to Oxford, I'm not coming. And my mother got very worried. She now thought she would have an unemployed son at home for the rest of her life. And so I, to kind of cool her down, I saw an ad in the paper, and they wanted, the company that made Vicks Vapor Rub wanted trainees. And so I applied. In those days, there were no MBAs.
Yes.
So you could do philosophy and get a job. So I thought I would, let's take a chance. I'll go for a little while. And if I don't like it, I'll do something else. But like the man who came to dinner, I stayed on. And I liked the rough and tumble of business. But suddenly, from ivy-covered halls at Harvard, I was in the dusty bazaars of India, going from chemist shop to chemist shop, selling Vicks Vapor Rub.
Vicks Vapor Rub.
Big change in life.
Completely. I mean, even I was just trying to visualize, you came all the way to Harvard, going back to India, taking a job in Vicks, and I could imagine it was like, so many years back, a complete different India that time.
Correct. And so, but at least my mother said he has a job. So that was all right. And frankly, I liked, I liked the bazaar. I liked the romance of the commerce. But I also had an intellectual side. And so I decided that my weekends, I would wear one hat. I'd wear two hats. One hat was from Monday to Friday, my business hat. And then I had my intellectual hat, and I became a writer.
Oh,
And so I, at the age of 22, wrote my first play. I was lucky. It won a prize.
oh.
It got performed on BBC. It got published by Oxford University Press. And so I was all set in my weekend career also. So I wore two hats for the next 25 years. And then in my mid 40s, I asked myself the same question that I mentioned. Is this what life was all about? You know, I was looking, I had gone to the, I had been CEO of Procter and Gamble, and they had sent me to the world headquarters to run
Mhm.
global strategy for health and beauty products.
Okay.
And as I was looking at the market share of our company's products, you know, all fine products, but I said to myself, there are reforms happening in India right now, and in the world is changing. And what am I doing? Looking at Nielsen figures day after day, when all this excitement is taking place in the world.
Mhm.
So I decided to quit. The company was uh, very generous, because they knew I wasn't going to join a competitor. And so they thought, they advised me maybe I should go into politics and change the socialist policies of India. But I said I could be more useful in changing minds and opinions. And that's how my book, India Unbound, was about that. India Unbound was changing India and so on. But essentially, what was I doing? I think I was following my father's advice that to make a life, that I had had the fun of business, and I had started repeating myself, I found, and I was looking for another challenge. So you can see that at every stage I was striking on my own way. You know, I did not go into engineering studies. I did not pursue philosophy. At each stage, I was doing what my father was saying, trying to make a life that would make sense to me, and bring me some satisfaction. And so I'm giving you this example because I think all of us face these dilemmas,
Absolutely.
and we have to then make decisions with our lives.
Yeah, like these dilemmas are like every day we are all in the rat race, and that's why I would say at least for me or even for the circles which I am in right now, the COVID has given everybody a break. You just think about it. Where are you going? What is your purpose of life? So these dilemmas
Right.
are very, very important, and I'm glad you are speaking on this topic and giving your examples are very, very
Yeah.
thought provoking. So please continue with your different examples.
Yeah. So you see, now I've given you one example of a life. I've discovered that if you really feel passionate about something, remember I told you I was wearing two
Go
hats.
ahead. Yes.
So in my weekend hat, I would lose myself in my writing, my intellectual life. And in my weekday life, I also enjoyed business. It wasn't that I hated business, but it was a different kind of satisfaction.
True.
And but the important thing is that in each one, I would get totally absorbed.
That's a
Now,
beauty.
when you get absorbed in something, time gets distorted. That's one way. You can say, oh my God, It's 6 o'clock already. I thought it's 4 o'clock. I've lost 2 hours. Well, those 2 hours, you were lost to the world. You were lost to yourself. There was no self. The self had disappeared.
True.
And that's when you know, when time gets distorted, that you are enjoying, you are absorbed, and you are doing something you love.
The
In
passion
fact,
comes out.
my one-line definition of happiness is to love the work you do, and second, love the person you live with. Simple.
The
Now,
second one is more important, sir.
well, to get the second one, we'll talk about the first one today. The second one, you have to read my book, Karma, the Riddle of Desire. That's where I've discussed the
Okay.
second one. So that's a commercial message. It's over. So now I want to switch now to my second story, which is about I made my life in this way. But this person I'm going to talk about made his life inside the job completely.
Oh,
You don't have to wear two hats or anything. The only lesson about wearing two hats is many people say, oh, I'll have a hobby. I'll work, but I'll have a hobby for the weekends.
yes.
The point is, you have to take your hobby as seriously as you take your job. In fact, you should take everything seriously, but not yourself seriously. That is the thing you should always remember. And so I'm going to tell you about a person who came to our company as a night guard. He was an assistant security guard.
Oh,
And he came from a village in Maharashtra, in Akola district.
okay.
And his name was Kamble. He hardly knew much English. And in fact, he called our company Procter and Gamble because
It's because
his
it's a
name was
complex.
Kamble.
So you thought it's all about only replace the K with a G and say Gamble.
Exactly. So he immediately he came, and many of us could tell that this guy is different from anybody we had met, because he was like a child who loved toys, and he discovered something new every day in the office. First day, he discovered the coffee making machine. And so he learned how to make coffee. And then in between his rounds, he was offering coffee. The next day, he discovered the tea kettle. And so he was looking around, making tea also in between his rounds. Next week, he discovered the telex machine. In those days, we sent telexes.
Telex, yeah.
He didn't know English, but I tell you, in 2 weeks, he was sending telexes, simple telexes on that machine.
Wow.
Similarly, fax machine. And then he had learned, in those days we had switchboards. You had to put wires into the switchboard. Well, he got very fascinated by that. And within a few weeks, he was answering the telephone also while he was doing his security job. So he had this childlike curiosity, and he took everything he loved his job, and he had a basic sense of service to try and do something for others. And so he was helping everybody. Pretty soon in the night shift, we often worked till, he came on at 5:30 when the daytime office closed. After that, if you needed anything in the office, you said, ask Kamble.
So he's the go-to guy.
Once I needed to get in touch with our finance director, and he immediately found out that the finance director was in Delhi. He found out which hotel, he found out which room number, and he connected me in 5 minutes.
Wow.
from with a switchboard. Very proudly, he had worked. He knew how to do the switchboard, and he connected me. So it was an amazing thing because he infected everybody in the evening, and people started staying later and later because it became much more efficient to work in the evening than in the daytime. After 7, 8 months, our operator during the daytime, telephone operator, she was going to have a baby and she went on maternity leave. So Kamble went to the head of personnel and he asked him, look, I'm tired of working at night. Let me be your temporary telephone operator while she's on away on leave. And when she comes back, I'll go back to my job. And the personnel guy says, are you crazy? We are a multinational company. We get calls from around the world, and you can't even speak a sentence of English. How do you expect to be the telephone operator? So the poor guy went away with a long face. But I heard through the grapevine what had happened. And so I spoke to the personnel guy. I said, look, let's give him a chance. Have another candidate ready as a backup. And if this guy doesn't work out after a couple of days, we'll change him. And so, sure enough, I arrive in the morning and there's Kamble proudly sitting at the telephone operator's booth, and he's answering the phone calls and everything. And a next day, I got a phone call from our company lawyer, who said that asking me, do you have a new EPBX system? I said, no. He says, well, your phone is now always answered on the first ring or the second ring. Before, I had to wait on hold till the fifth ring, till sixth ring, and then it was answered. I said, the only new EPBX system is Kamble. So at lunchtime, I went past Kamble's booth and I said, why do you answer the phone so quickly? And he says, there may be a customer on the other side, and I don't want you to lose a customer. And so now, I think that was such a devastating answer that not even our marketing director could have given such a good answer. And so in this way, Kamble started doing the same thing, helping out people and he was all the time having fun. He discovered carom board, carom board.
Carom board,
So he brought board and few dice, whatever you play with, and those things. And so at lunchtime, the office converted itself into a carom board. Everybody brought carom boards. And so for 1 hour, people had a lot of fun, during lunch hour. So he made the office fun. And he had this infectious quality. And most of all, I think his most important quality was that he did many, many small things, but he never wanted to take credit for it. He just did it because it was his job to do. And that was a great quality. People loved him for that. He was always wanted to stay in the back. And anyway, the point is, this guy, company immediately appreciated that here's a man, a very extraordinary man, even though he doesn't know much English, but they started promoting him.
Okay.
And so they sent him to English speaking classes, and he taught English, and slowly rose to become a director of the company.
Wow.
One day. And so what was it in Kamble? I think we would all love to fill our companies with Kamble. What it was attitude. He was first hungry. he had for his first job. He was hungry, he was excited, and he just loved being at the office. And and so I was telling you, he was making a life every day. And as I mentioned his childlike curiosity. Now, when it's raining, adults, they will carry an umbrella and
Yep.
there's a puddle on the sidewalk. They'll go around the puddle, but a child will go jump right in the middle of the puddle. Kamble was like that. He used to jump in the middle of the puddle. And so he was basically, he had a bias for action. And I could tell immediately. And this is why he taught me that execution is more important than strategy. We look for people with big minds,
Yes.
but we need to have people who are action oriented also. Very important. And the difference between a great company and a mediocre company is this desire, is execution. Anyone can have a good idea,
Yes.
but very few can execute.
True.
So that is another lesson I learned from Kamble. Then he had a service orientation. Now, a few years ago, my wife had a birthday, so I went to buy a sari to Lajpat Nagar market in Delhi.
Delhi.
And the sariwala, he showed me one sari, he took out one than, then second, third, fourth. Before I realized it, he had opened 50 saris. And then I was so confused that instead of buying one, I bought three, which was good strategy on his part. But then, I realized that this guy will now have to fold back each than and put it back on the shelf. He had no help.
Yeah.
And so here was a person who really believed but that's how the market, the bazaar operates like that.
Yeah.
The next guy, if would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
You see, his competitor. Now, this is in contrast because a few years ago, I went soon after this sari story. I had to go to London to attend a board meeting.
Okay.
And that board meeting, we were having lunch afterwards. And I spilled, it was a white shirt, and I spilled something on my shirt. So after the lunch, we were meeting a big customer. So I didn't want to walk like that to the meeting.
Yeah.
So I ran to Bond Street, pick up a shirt. So the sales girl showed me 3 shirts. She measured my collar. In my collar, she gave me 3 shirts. I remember the sariwala.
Yeah.
So I asked her, can I see some more? She said, first, will you buy one? I said, are you crazy, miss? Every time you open your mouth, you lose a customer. And I said, let me speak to your supervisor. So I told her, this poor girl has not been trained properly. This is what she said. And so I was, there are only 3 ways to create competitive advantage.
Yeah.
You can create it through lower costs, lower prices. And you know that when you drop your prices, it goes all the way down to the bottom line. So it costs you a lot. The other way is to have superior products.
Yeah.
Now, that also, of course, you have to spend a lot of money in R&D to get product superiority. The third way is service. Superior service. After sales service or whatever, service is crucial because anyone can drop their price and match you, anyone can go down, but service is free. And that's why you need to hire Kambles in your company. You see?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that is a way to get free competitive advantage. Anyway, the I could talk to you more and more, but Kamble had this quality of humility, which I want, the last point I want to mention.
Okay.
It is what the Guru had told me, that Kamble took his work seriously, but he didn't take himself seriously.
Himself.
He was laughing, joking all the time. And so, all I suggest to you is that Kamble made his life. He was passionate about his work. He was happy at his work. Infected everybody. Whoever came in touch with him got infected by him. And so, the mantra should be, you hire people for their attitude and you train them for skills.
Kill.
So when you interview a person, don't ask that person, he's from IIT, he's from IIM. Why do you ask them about what they know? They know. What you want to know is, how do they apply what they know? How do they get things done? What
Execution.
sort of attitude they have? And that's what really matters. Leaders have the right attitudes. Remember, I said determination,
Yes.
humility. Well, these were the qualities that I think that Kambi had. So, this is what I want to really basically talk about. That talk about the fact that uh, one, about attitude, and two, I wanted to say that we should all be concerned about making a life and not just making a living. So you can do it by many ways. You can do it by Kamble's way, or you can do it like my way. But there's a responsibility on parents
Mm-hmm.
and on teachers. You see, my father made me aware about making a life.
Correct.
Now, it's the job of parents. You know, everybody is not born like Mozart, who at the age of 3 knew he was a musical genius. And by 5, he had written his first symphony. People stumble through life to discover what they love, their passion, etc. But parents and teachers can help in this way.
I think
So,
this is a Saturday morning, almost a breakfast time for me, and you gave me almost a full course meal of the Gyan, because any person on this planet, an ordinary person, can become extraordinary if he knows the simple difference of what is making a life versus making a living. And you also gave a fantastic leadership, simple lessons to all the corporate leaders, the determination and the grit of the determination, and the humility,
humility.
really important. And adding both those two with integrity. And I really like the way how you said, if somebody talks about the integrity, then you have to really question about that person's integrity, because we have to see that in action. This is, and you are a very eloquent storyteller. It was like, I was mesmerizing, even though we thought, we want to do it in 35, 40 minutes. I couldn't stop. I just lost myself in your stories, and it was so encouraging. And now I think probably I will never call Procter and Gamble. I will say Procter and Gamble, because Gamble has really put so much interesting, instilled the curiosity, the childlike curiosity, irrespective of wherever you are on this planet and whatever the age you are, it is for you. But you have to inculcate that curiosity with empathy to help others. So it was a great pulse of wisdom you have given. Any last final thoughts before we conclude, sir?
Well, the last thought really grows out of what I've been saying. And it's a thought for sort of the post-COVID lives that we are all going to embrace. And that is really coming from the great thinker Patanjali,
Uh-huh.
who in his Yoga Sutras, it talks about one of the perfections that we can inculcate through yoga. And it is called lightness, lakima, lakima.
Lakima.
Lightness where you can almost fly. And so when I talk to you about the mantra of the Guru, about taking your work seriously, but not yourself seriously, the next step is to live your life lightly. Don't be burdened down by things, and live lightly, not like a feather, but like a bird who can sing, who can fly away, you should be laughing, playing lots of practical jokes like Kamble, and having fun. And so with that particular thought, I want to I want to say namaste, and I
Namaste.
have enjoyed talking to you, Swami.
Thank you so much. It's been a dream come true. I've been following up as you are my mentor, but we couldn't meet in person because of various reasons. But I'm happy that you have here and you have given a great pulse of wisdom to all my global listeners, because now we are all people around the globe. But again, we are on this planet, and those simple words are really making everybody awakening. And I wish all the listeners will stop doing making a living and start doing a making a life. So thank you so much, sir, Gurucharan Dasji, and thank you so much from Swami from USA. Have a good
Thank
evening,
you.
sir.